Hi everybody and very welcome to yet another Sunday night live stream. I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic wherever you are out there in the world. Let's go ahead, get started. Those of you who have been here on my live streams before, you know what this is all about. You will be asking the questions, I will be providing the answers, and hopefully you will continue to ask more questions, and we can do this for about 45 minutes or so. So on today's live stream, I've already gotten quite a few interesting questions on the Mentour Aviation app chat. Now, those of you who have the app, you will have gotten a notification about this live stream, and you would have also been able to answer or to ask some of the questions already. And one of the questions that came up is whether or not I think that pilots should be armed, right? So this is a very, very tricky question, all right? I know that it's been debated a lot since September 11th, where, you know, the pros would be, of course, that the pilots would be able to, let's see, I'm just making sure that you all can see me. But the pilot will be able to defend themselves, obviously, in case of a hijacker trying to enter the cockpit. The downside of it, which actually I think is a little bit heavier, is the fact that if you have or if you allow weapons to be taken on board by any kind of crew member, that means that you're effectively taking away one of the safety barriers, which is to make sure that there shouldn't be any firearms or any kind of weapons at all present on the in the aircraft. If you do that, it means that a potential terrorist group could go and they could threaten the family of a pilot, for example, and have them bring firearms or guns into an aircraft in preparation for an attack. This is one of the major reasons why I don't like at all the thought of having any kind of pistols or firearms or anything on board. I think that what we're doing at the moment, which is to make sure that there is a very solid barrier where hijackers just cannot get into the cockpit, that is probably the absolute best way of dealing with this. People having firearms, first of all, you need to have continuous training in order to use them. Second of all, using firearms on board an aircraft would not be a great idea. You would definitely puncture the hull of the aircraft if you would ever use them, which would lead to a potential depressurization, depending on what kind of weapon is being used. There's just way, loads of stuff which is really, really bad with the fact of pilots having any kind of firearm. It's much better to keep with the way that we're doing it now, which is to keep everyone out and to make sure that the cockpit door stays locked under any circumstance. And that's my take on that. So that was one of the questions that came up through the Mentour Aviation app chat. If you guys don't have the app by now, shame on you. Right, guys, I really want you, and I want all of the friends that you have that are aviation interested, aviation geeks, anything that you call yourself. If you like watching aircraft or listening to my videos or other YouTubers' videos about aviation, well then you should get the app, because within the next 3 months there's going to be some major changes happening, all right? Some major upgrades, which I am aiming to turn this app from what it is now, which is essentially a video viewer with a small chat, into a social media platform for you guys, where you can ask any kind of questions to professionals like me or to other people who are maybe in training or just one step ahead of you, to make sure that you get the answers to your questions in a safe and supportive environment. The app chat is already good, but it's going to get about 1,000% better within a few months. So get the app now. It's completely free to download. I want all of you in there asking questions, answering questions. That's what I want, and I'll talk more about that later. Right, so those of you who've been here before know that what I'll do is I answer the questions that comes up primarily from the people using the super chat, because they are actually helping me by supporting the channel financially, so that I can do these kind of app upgrades that I'm doing and buying material for the channel and going out and doing cool stuff. So I'll start with answering them, then I'll answer some questions from the app chat and from you guys who are using the scrolling chat here at the moment. Are you wearing makeup? No, I am not wearing any kind of makeup. This is just how I look. But thank you. Right, so we have some super chats already. What are your thoughts on the Boeing 797 concept? Do you think there will be a return to passenger supersonic flight in the near future? Okay, if I start with the 797 project, I think that Boeing is definitely thinking correct there. The 797 project, the way I've seen, I haven't read much about it, but as far as I've seen, is a way to replace the 757 and the 767, which mean not super long haul, like the 787 is supposed to be, very, very long haul. This is more of a medium haul, wide aisle, it's a 2-aisle aircraft, so wide body. And the idea is correct, right? There's going to be a huge need for those medium flights within Europe, within the continental United States, down to South America, and also to a certain extent over the Atlantic. So I think that the 797 project looks really, really interesting. And I think Boeing is probably on the right track there. When it comes to the supersonic flight, I'm not too sure. Okay, I know that there are several projects, the Boom project, for example, and there are other smaller business jets that are looking at going into the supersonic area again. But the thing is, you need some quite substantial legislation changes in, for example, the United States before it's ever going to be allowed to fly supersonic over land, over continental Europe and over continental US. So that's needed first. We need legislation to change, and then these type of aircraft will be able to fly. So far, they will only be able to fly supersonic over the Atlantic or over the Indian Ocean or the Pacific Ocean, right? Which is good as well, but that's not what they want. They won't be able to fly supersonic whenever. So yes, hopefully we will see supersonic flights again. I do think that there's a niche for it, providing that they can do it reasonably cheap and reasonably environmentally friendly, because it's going to turn more and more about being environmentally friendly going forward. Right, so more questions here from Jeremy Kana. Thank you for supporting the channel. It's very much appreciated. Hi Mentor, I often see the term flight idle. What does that mean? Is it the same N1 as ground idle, and is it the same detent for thrust levels? PS, like seeing the FMC in the last video. You'll be seeing much more FMCs and stuff in coming videos. The answer to your question is no. There's a difference between ground idle and flight idle. That's why there are two different names for it. So flight idle is slightly higher than ground idle, and the reason is that we need to have the idle set a slightly higher power setting in flight because of the time it takes for the engines to spool up. If we would let the engines roll back all the way back to ground idle, which is around 20% or so, then it will take ages from when we add thrust until the thrust actually came, because the first couple of seconds it takes for the fan to start spinning, it takes ages for it. So that's why they created flight and approach idle, so that the engines would roll back. The detent is the same, all the way back, but the engine only rolls back to a much higher value. I can't exactly remember now, it's a 35 or 33% or somewhere around there. So that when we add thrust, we will get thrust almost instantaneously. And that's the difference between ground idle and flight idle, okay? It also has some quite big significance when it comes to the idle of the reverses. Since we're back on the ground, if we cancel the reverses and let them go all the way back to ground idle, if we then need reverses, it's going to take a lot of time, up to even 15 seconds to apply full reverse thrust again. And that is potentially time that we don't have, especially if we suddenly need it because we're about to run out of the runway because of slippery conditions. So that's what it is about. And like I said, there's going to be much more technical stuff coming up on the channel very soon, so make sure that you stay tuned. Right, more questions here. Sierra Romeo Mike, what happens when you... it jumps here. What happens when you try to pull the landing gear lever up while on the ground? I know the landing gear won't actually go up, but does the lever move? Okay. You can actually select the landing gear up on the ground. I'm going to make a short video about that when I have a chance about it, but you shouldn't, all right? There is a mechanical lock that stops that from happening, but maybe some of you have seen the little red trigger that's on the landing gear lever on the 737-800 and the older models. That's basically an override to that. So the mechanical lock is there when the aircraft feels that it's on the ground. When the weight on wheel switches on the wheels are compressed, it feels like it's on the ground, well, then the gear is locked in position. if you pull the red override, you can actually select the gear up, and you will get the gear, the hydraulic unit starting to try to retract it. Now, all of the weight of the aircraft is going to be on the landing gear at that point, so it's possible that the hydraulic power will not be strong enough to actually retract the gear, but the nose gear will definitely retract. So that would be a really, really bad idea. And now you're asking why? Why would there be a red little button? Well, it's there in case the weight on wheel switches would fail. Well, actually, they're there in case the weight on wheel switches actually works, but there's a different problem with the system, so that we can actually retract the gear even with the failure of the system. But that's for airborne use, not on the ground. Right? Great question, by the way. I think I might actually do a short video on that, because I think that's going to be really interesting to see. So, Joe Richardson, how much and what sort of maths do you use on a day-to-day basis at work, trigonometry, etc.? Or is it most of that done by the FMC? Love the videos. Most of the heavier mathematical stuff that we need to do on a day-to-day basis is done by the FMC today. Right, the bigger aircraft, we don't have to do a lot of it. We have to do some very simple maths, which is like calculating 3 times our altitude to get the track miles, plus about 1 nautical mile for each 10 knots that needs to be decelerated, counting on tailwind and headwind. So we need to sit and do those kind of calculations just to make sure that the FMC is doing a good job when calculating our distance needed in order to descend. That we have to do. We have to be able to calculate crosswind components fairly quickly, which is trigonometry, by the way. I manually correct load sheets. I go through the load sheets and I have to correct that quickly, do that accurately, obviously. Things like that. But where you will actually need it more trigonometry is when you start doing your training when you fly on smaller aircraft. If you're going to fly a DME ARC, for example, if you're not having an FMC that's calculating the track for you, well, then you're going to have to be able to calculate how much do I need to turn at this distance for the VOR in order to follow a nice, say, 15 nautical mile DME ARC. So it is being used, and you might have to do some quick calculations if something goes wrong. If you have to go into our performance manual and follow all the diagrams there and kind of calculate the distance to run with single engine, how far can I fly single engine with this amount of fuel. So yeah, there are some potentially quite challenging mathematical stuff that needs to come in, but we're not talking rocket science here. We're not talking calculating how to build a building or something like that. It's fairly straightforward, but you have to be fairly quick in your head. Okay. Christian Lambach, hi Mentor, planning to start an integrated course next year. Ah, great, good for you, man. Is there any subject you recommend start reading? You're doing an absolutely fantastic job. Well, thank you. Get your hands on the theoretical package as soon as you can, right? If you can contact the school and you can get out the theory books and you can start reading that, the more you have, the more you've prepared, the better it is. You might not be able to understand everything, but you can definitely start reading up on things like meteorology, aircraft general, human factors, all of those things. The more you have, the more you know, the better it is for you. So there's no subjects that I would recommend you. Like I said, you need to be fairly up to speed on your math up to mathematics C level, which we have in Sweden, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Up to C is good. You need to have more or less fluent English. The better English you have, the better it is for you. But apart from that, just try to get yourself, get the theory package and start reading. That's what I would suggest you to do. Jamil Haddad, thank you for being an inspiration to get my private. My question is there a rating for flying international? No, it's not. All right. In order to fly international, you need to have an international radio license, as in a radio license in English, because there are actually radio licenses who are only valid for the country that you're flying, but you need an English radio license. When you have all of your licenses, which are issued by the country you're in, like the United States have FAA licenses, in Europe you have EASA licenses, then you're allowed to fly for an operator that is operating within that license area. So if me, for example, I have an EASA license, I can operate for any company that's working within the European Union. If I need to go and fly for a company that's outside, let's say I want to go to Emirates or Qatar or to China Southern or something like that, then it's likely that I'm going to have to convert my licenses from an EASA license to a local license there. All right. But when it comes to flying internationally, if I have the license for the airline I'm working for in Europe, and they fly internationally, that works, right? It's all under ICAO. ICAO has decided that all of these different licenses are valid, so you can fly with a European license on a European airline to China or to Australia or to the United States, no problem at all. All right, so that's the way it works. I might do some more videos about that actually. Okay, so, and by the way, thank you for supporting the channel. Now, guys, before I keep, I see there's loads of questions coming up here. I will be answering all of them, providing I have enough internet, that is. If I don't, then we will discuss it over the app. But before I go, I just want to mention to you guys that right now I have a sale inside of the Mentour Aviation app. Now, the app is absolutely free, but I've done some training courses inside of the app. For example, how to do a rejected takeoff and an evacuation, how to set up a 737 from cold and dark until it's ready to taxi, and TCAS maneuvers, Cat 3 approaches, loads and stuff like that. It's almost 2 hours of instruction that right now I have inside of the app for only $5, okay? Now, if you go in and you get the app and you get that, it's all in one collection, well then you will be helping me to fund this update that's coming, that's going to make this app really great. And it's filmed, these collections are filmed in 360, okay? Now, it's really cool actually. You'll be able to swipe around, you know, you can watch inside where I am doing stuff, or you can turn your phone so you can see what's happening. Or if you really want to feel it realistically, well then you get one of these Google Cardboards and it will feel just like you're sitting on the jump seat together with me while I'm doing these maneuvers. So go into the app, check it out, it's really, really cool. All right, let's continue. Daniel Bengtsson, hi Petter, I guess there have been some modifications concerning the cockpit door after the German wings accident. Maybe it's secret stuff. No, there's not been any kind of modifications after the German wings disaster. That was just bad for everyone involved. It did not help in any way. The German wings disaster is one of the few disasters out there where we haven't learned anything, where nothing good have come out of it. It's just really sad all through. All right. Now, when it comes to me talking about the cockpit door and security and safety stuff, I just cannot do that. All right. There's stuff in there that the general public does not need to know. So these procedures concerning the cockpit door, concerning cockpit entry, concerning procedures for hijacking, things like that, I just can't speak about it. So I'm sorry about that, but there are some stuff that needs to be left alone. Okay, so let's see, I'm running a little bit behind, guys. There we go. What would be the impact of Brexit on EU aviation? We don't know. See, that's the problem. We don't know because there has been no deal negotiated, because there is nothing really set in stone. No one really knows. The only thing we know is that if the UK would crash out without a deal, well then what would happen would be that the national license holders inside of the UK would not be validated against the EASA licenses. So you'll be able to fly for a UK airline, but you wouldn't be able to fly on a European airline at the moment. Okay, it would be just like you having a Chinese license or a UAE license or something like that. It's possible that we would be able to convert it. It's very likely, but at the moment, without any deals, that's what it is. Everything has to be dealt with on an individual basis. So the UK would have to have a deal, unilateral deal with each and every country, or with the European zone, obviously. So at the moment, it's impossible for me. I can't sit here and even guess what's going to happen. The only thing that I can say, it's going to be very complicated, very expensive, and really, really irritating. All right, that's what it's going to be. Unless they come up with something where they have a good deal in place, it's just going to be very annoying for a lot of people, and potentially a little bit dangerous as well. But that has more to do with like medicines not being able to get through port, and a lot of goods being stopped at the border, things like that. So it's just sad. That's the way I view it as well. We should all be able to get along. We should all be able to work together. And the way that the world is moving right now with these tribalisms, and we want to do our own stuff and stuff, is basically just taking us back 100 years in time. And it wasn't better 100 years ago, I can tell you that. So, Odd Gamer. Hey, a little explanation on how the WPS works, and why does the IAS decrease flying through the friction layer? Dankeschön. The WPS. All right, you're gonna have to send me a because that WPS is not a acronym that I immediately recognize. The IAS decrease through the friction layer. Well, it doesn't really. It depends on what happens. It depends on what happens above the friction layer, really. If you're coming into tailwind, let's say that you're taking off and there's an inversion, so there's a temperature difference that holds the air in the friction layer still, and then there might be a wind above. It happens quite often, especially during high pressure, so when it's really nice weather. Well, then what might happen is you might take off in zero or a little bit of a headwind, and as you get through the friction layer and above that layer, you might enter a tailwind, and that's going to then show up as a decrease in your indicated airspeed. But otherwise, there's nothing saying that you automatically get a decrease in the IES as you're getting through the friction layer. I hope. It was 20 years ago since I read the theory, but it's not something that I've seen anyway. WPS, I still don't really know. Right? Can someone in the chat write if you know what WPS stands for? And then maybe I can explain it. Why can't airliners fly over Antarctica? They can. There's just no reason to it. The Norwegian has planned to do a route that goes straight over Antarctica, but airlines, they only plan routes if it's economical. They don't do it for the fun of just flying over the South Pole. I know that there's a lot of discussions among the flat earthers about the fact that there's no routes going straight over the South Pole, but there will be. There have been people flying there, so no. Ian, great to see you here. Ian is part of my trusted Patreon crew. It's lovely to see you patrons here. And I want to take this opportunity now when I see the question here from Ian to thank all of you guys. I know there's a lot of you on the Patreon crew out there. I know I don't say this enough, but I really, really appreciate the dedication that you guys are giving to the channel. I send out questions to my Patreon crew, like what should I be talking about next week, and do you think that this is a good idea? And then they come with feedback to me. I show them thumbnails and they can give pro and con and stuff like that. So I do really use and I really appreciate the work that the Patreon crew is doing. Now, if you guys feel like joining the Patreon crew, it does mean sending in a little bit of money to the channel. And once again, the money goes towards buying new material for the channel, upgrading the app, stuff like that. But if you want to, there's a link here in the description of the video. You can go and check it out and see if it's something for you. It's very highly appreciated. Now, back to the question. Petter, I saw your video but wasn't certain what the actual ground speeds were. Maybe me being tired of the 13-hour flight from Malaysia. The actual ground speeds, Ian, in relation to what? Because I'm not really following which video that we're talking about. I saw your video but wasn't certain what the actual ground speeds were. Maybe me being tired of the... Well, yeah, that would be understandable. Yeah, just send me an email. Do you have my email? Or via Patreon, and we can discuss it more there. Kian Agar, hello. I flew the Piper PA-38 today, and I've most definitely caught the aviation bug. Flying is an amazing feeling. I get why pilots love their job. I know. If you've been out and you've done a test lesson, you know what it feels like. And once you have that bug stuck in here, you will never get rid of it. All right. The only way that to kind of scratch that bug is to go flying. You don't necessarily need to become an airline pilot because of that. It might be enough to go out and fly as a private pilot or fly gliders or something like that. But once it's there, it's always going to be there, and you are just going to have to continuously scratch that little aviation bug constantly. Thank you for supporting the channel. Jakobski, hi, last time I flew I got this horrible headache, not just the usual ear pressure issue. How can I avoid this for my next flight? Yeah, no, it's likely that you had, that what you had was a little bit of a cold, okay, and some of your sinuses were blocked. And what can happen then is that you have blocked air inside of your sinuses, and you climb, that's going to expand, and you're going to get this kind of blinding headache. What I always recommend is that you have a little bit of nose spray with you, like Neseril or something equivalent. And if you feel that you have a bit of a cold, before you go flying, just about 10 minutes before or something, just give yourself a little bit of that in order to open it up, in order to avoid that happening, because that, together with ear pains or toothache caused by pressure differences, is really terrible. I know that. So that's why when I start having a cold, as soon as I feel that my ear, the eustachian tubes are starting to block up, I just call in sick until it's gone, because it's just not worth it. Doug Pauly, Doug, great to have you here, man. Hi, have you ever skid scarily on a runway or taxi? Yeah, I have. All right. One of the most potentially dangerous situations that you'll ever come across as an airline pilot in normal operations is real winter ops, right? And the problem tends to come not only on the runways, because the runways tends to be fairly well maintained. They tend to put urea out in order to melt snow and ice, and they keep it clean. They constantly brush it. The problem with that is that if it's snowing, then of course they're going to prioritize the runway in front of the taxiway. So you might be able to stop nicely on the runway. I did this in Krakow a couple of weeks back. And then as you taxi off, all of a sudden, all of the braking action is gone. And while you will notice that is when you start turning, because obviously there's a lot of pressure on the main wheels, but on the nose wheel there's not too much pressure. So if it's really slippery, and I turn the tiller, nothing happens, and the aircraft just starts going straight ahead. That's why you have to be really, really quick with selecting the reverses potentially, because that might be the only way to stop it. So yeah, I've had that. I mean, I was based in Stockholm for 7 years. There's proper Stockholm winters, So yeah, I've felt the skid. The problem is as well that the anti-skid kicks in, so you put full wheel brakes, as in absolute max manual braking, and nothing happens. It just keeps going straight ahead, and it's 65 tons potentially that is going just straight ahead. So reverses, always be ready with your reverses. Nitrax on the normal chat, what is the most difficult airport that you've landed at? Yeah, the most difficult one is probably Toulon in southern France, especially when they have half of their nav aids not working and it's full of helicopters and private aircraft around. You have to do an ILS. I had to do a non-precision approach and then to a non-conformative circling. So you come down one approach and then you brake right and then you follow kind of a downwind and then you turn in base and you land on a crossing runway, and that's with all types of VFR traffic around and there's terrain around. So Toulon is one of those places that you were always a little bit nervous, not nervous, but always a little bit tense before you go to. Otherwise, Perugia in Italy can be very tricky as well, especially if it's windy and there's the circling in force. Those are probably the first ones that comes to mind. Joey Starnes, no question, just to show my appreciation. Thank you very much. Alright, Nissan Lee. Hi Mentor, love your absolutely fantastic videos. Well, thank you. Can you recommend on Air Canada 77 tails? Can you comment on the Air Canada 773 tail strike when landing in Hong Kong last month? Now, I haven't read that accident report or that incident report, and I'm very careful with commenting on ongoing investigations before they're done. All right, what I can comment on is the only tail strike on landing that I have heard of, which I do have the final story on. Now, tail strike on landings can happen for a few occasions, for a few different reasons. They can happen if you go around and while you do go around, you pull too quickly to get away from the ground. People tend to do that because they think that it's scary to go around once you're on the ground, and then you tail strike as part of kind of a go around. That can also happen before you touch down. You're really low and you do a bulked landing, which is called. And you press toga and you push forward and then you pull. Then you might be, if you're too quick, you might hit the tail. Tail strikes on landings are more serious than tail strikes on takeoff, because they tend to hit on a different place. Instead of hitting back in the tail skid where it's designed to take the tail strike, it hits on the underbelly of the aircraft, and it causes much more and severe damage. The other thing that can happen, which is what happened actually on the one occasion that I knew about, was a bounced landing. Okay, so the aircraft landed too hard, it bounced up, and there is a feature on the 737 that will put the spoilers to full extent if you close the thrust levels and you're below 10 feet of radio altitude. So what happened was that the aircraft bounced up, the pilot closed the thrust level. That meant that you get full deflection of the spoilers. While you get that, the aircraft pitches up automatically, and then it sat down on the tail, and it caused an enormous amount of damage. No problem, no safety issues, but the aircraft was very close to be completely scrapped because of it. So tail strikes on landing is not a good thing. Okay. But yeah, I want to emphasize that as well, guys, that me as a professional pilot, and I'm working in an airline now as well, I am very careful with discussing things in ongoing investigations, right? I shouldn't do that. I've done it on a few occasions where there's something positive that's come out of it, like the Southwest accident where they managed to get the aircraft safely down on the ground. And I did it also when the whole thing about MCAS came out from the 737 MAX accident that happened down outside of Jakarta, because there was actually guidance coming out from Boeing. Boeing was sending out bulletins. This is what you do. And the only thing that I did was really discuss what that meant and what that meant for the flight crew. But I don't want to discuss ongoing investigations. And I think Captain Joe mentioned something about that as well. I do hope that he didn't talk about me on that occasion. But, I agree with what he said. Cool. So, let's see. Cloud, Petre, apart from your alternate, do you keep track of nearest possible diversion airports en route? Yeah, to a certain extent we do. I have to, when I'm sitting there, I have to have a little bit of a look where there might be a suitable alternate to go to, because you never know when there might be a medical emergency in the back, or all of a sudden there is smoke coming, or something that happened that requires you to do a fairly quick diversion. So when that happens, you better not have been sitting with a newspaper not knowing where you are. You need to have an idea. Like I had a failure indication about a few weeks back that I thought, okay, if something happens with this, that might go, this is not a good thing. So what I did was I sit and I look at different airports that I think would be good to divert to. I put up a ring, I put it into the fixed page, and I put a ring out with I was at about 37,000 feet. So 37,000 feet, and then you take that times 3, so about 115 nautical miles, plus about 5 to accelerate. So I thought, if I make a ring of 120 between each alternate, I will see which one is closest, and if something does happen, then I know that I can start diverting to either one or the other. So I have a plan in mind, and it's all about that, guys. To be successful in this occupation is to be fairly well read up, know your systems, know how to communicate with your first officer or your captain and your team, but also be prepared. Always prepare yourself for the worst possible scenario. So if I'm going to this airport and the weather is like this, well then I will be mentally prepared for, right, it's going to be below minima, I'm going to have to divert, what do I have to do? So I have a plan, because if I have a plan, I'll just be able to execute that plan. But if I don't have a plan, I need to engage my brain fully into making the plan, maybe when I don't have that much time available. So that's it. So Giovanni Paul, been addicted to your videos for the past few weeks, ever since I discovered you on YouTube. Great content. Greetings from a frequent flyer. Well, Giovanni, congratulations. Welcome to the channel. If you have any kind of suggestions about other things that I should be talking about, well then tell me, send in something on this video, or even better, go into the Mentour Aviation app, and as I see down here, there, just tag @Mentour, That will send me a push notification in my phone. So if I'm available and I don't have something to do, I'll be able to answer it. If I see that you have a good suggestion or something, well then I will, write that down in my little list of things that I want to do videos about, and I might do a video about it. There's plenty of you who's watching out here who have sent me suggestions that I have taken up, because remember, I have close to, I think, 400 videos out there now. So there's plenty to watch. Enjoy. All right. Sorry, I'm going to take some tea, guys, because I'm losing my voice here. David R. Have any planes crashed from turbulence? Not that comes to mind, as in there's been damages to aircraft because of extreme turbulence and sometimes severe turbulence as well. I can't come up with any crashes that are caused, but that depends on how you characterize turbulence. Because if you look at, for example, microbursts, then yes, there has been. And if you look at wake turbulence as well, wake turbulence accidents, then yes, especially smaller aircraft, there's been quite a few that have been flicked over on short final and crashed because of that. So, but actual in-flight turbulence, there's more. It's likely to have been more damage because of a combination of turbulence, hail damage, things like that. But it doesn't come to mind now. I don't know all of the crashes who's ever happened, but no, I don't think so. Sean Reedy, hi Mentor. What do you think caused the Boeing 707 crash in Iran? They landed at the wrong airport. I think that was what happened. From what I could read on it, now there's not going to be an investigation if we're talking about the same thing, because this is a military or a state aircraft, so they're not flying under the rules that require a full investigation to be done. But as far as I could read about it, they mistook the runway. They landed on a runway which was way too short, and that's what caused it. But once again, I don't have all of the info regarding that. Fourth 3AR. Hi Mentor, would be cool to see a variation in your theme song. I'm a music producer, would love to provide you one. Just a thought. Yeah, the thing is with changing theme songs is that a theme song is just that. It's kind of a signum of the channel. So it's unlikely that I will change the actual theme song. I think the one that I have is probably something that people kind of recognize as part of the channel. But I will be making videos that will require songs. So, feel free to contact me and we'll see what we can do. I get quite a few requests by producers who want me to enter their songs into the channel, and the problem is that so far I haven't been doing much of these kind of nice aircraft flying away into a sunset videos, and those are the ones that are really lifted by great music, while me, just a dude in his late 30s talking about stuff in his sofa, the songs doesn't add much to it. But I get what you mean, and do contact me if you feel like it. Oh man, I am way behind here. There we go. Doug Pauly, please don't think all British want the sad separation of Brexit. I'm British and I really value being European. I wish I wouldn't have to leave. I know. It was 50%. That, like 51% that voted, so 49% wanted to stay. I'm not going to go into the politics of it. It's up for the decision have been made. I hope that there will be another vote. Because now, when the British people have a chance to see what they're actually getting, and not just getting the kind of populist bullshit that was coming out during the actual campaign about how, millions and millions would go to the NHS, which obviously is not going to happen. Now that people see that it's likely to lead to a recession instead, I think people will probably think one, thing more. I always like to like it with the fact that you, when you see. You want something and you vote about, okay, I'm going to build a house, and then obviously once you've decided on that, you do the blueprint. You do, this is how much it's going to cost, this is where it's going to be, this is how it's going to look. But you don't pay any money until you have decided. When you've seen, okay, this is the plan, this is how it's going to do, then you always have a chance to no, that's actually not what I wanted, and you can stop it. So the British didn't have that chance. They just voted on something that the politicians said is going to look one way. Now it looks a completely different way. So I would hope that it would be another vote. That's what I hope for. and either the British then decide that, yeah, we want to leave, and then everyone is on board and that's it, or they can actually reverse it, because I think it's sad the way it looks right now. Sam Petros. Hi Sam, good to see you here. Yet another one of my trusty Patreons. Can a 737 take off like the B-52, where the nose doesn't pitch up? Well, no, is the short answer. But it can do something similar. If we do a flaps 25 takeoff, which is actually possible, then there will not be much nose up. Right, it will be almost like the B-52s that kind of just lift off the ground like that. We don't do that very often, but we can do it. Okay, so it will look similar, but it's still going to be a little bit of pitch up. Christoph Etch, thank you for your nice videos. Well, thank you for being here and supporting the channel. Ballas Poloja, can the airplane structure be damaged by bad touchdown? Yeah, it absolutely can. More than about 2.3 Gs, then it has to go through. I think it's 2.2 even. It has to go through an inspection. They inspect landing gear, obviously, but also part of the structure. And if you do a touchdown that's way worse than that, then anything could happen. I mean, I've seen examples of touchdowns where the landing gear has gone through the wing, and absolutely. So you have to be careful. This is why we train, and this is why, to make sure that before you are let out on line, before me, the line trainer, will let you as a cadet out on line, you have to demonstrate that you can do safe landings in a controlled way. But because if you can't, you can make all sorts of damage. August Korum, took my intro flight yesterday and starting school this fall. Excellent. Can I work in the evening while doing a full immersion program? You're going to have to speak to your flight school about that. Normally not. If you're doing an integrated course, it's going to be very compressed, right? It's going to be like full-time flying, full-time reading up on your theory for your ATPL exams and things like that. And you maybe do it in 18 months. So it will be very precious little time to do anything else. But if you're doing a modular course, then sure. Then that's the benefit of that. It will take you longer, but it's also possible that you'll be able to work and save some money and stuff on the side. So speak to your school, see what the schedule is going to be like. But if you are going to invest a lot of money in your training, then make sure that when you're doing that training that you'll be able to concentrate fully on it. It's important. And good luck. Keep me posted. Let's see. Max Witt, is it possible to experience a few hours of full flight deck simulator as a private person just for fun? How much do you think it will cost? Yeah, it is. I have been working together with a school in let's see, in the UK, who's doing exactly this. There's a lot of flight training centers around. Where you can just go in and you can rent a simulator. Now, normally it's not full flight simulators, I should say. It tends to be fixed base simulators, but you don't really need the full flight to start with. It will feel like full flight anyway. I can guarantee you that. But you can definitely, even if you want a full flight, it's going to be a little bit more expensive. But a couple of €100 maybe for a full flight simulator for half an hour, something like that. I think that they can be rented for like €500-600 per hour, or a little bit even less than that. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but yeah, there are places like virtual airline training, for example, in Cambridge, which is the ones that I've been working with, that you can go and you can rent it for try it with an instructor for an hour, and I don't think that's very expensive at all, so do check it out. Reese Chandler, as always, EasyJet isn't in 2 weeks, Hudson Miracle 10 years ago. Why are water landings so dangerous? Why don't planes have a float to stop them sinking? Water landings are dangerous because they're very hard to control. Okay, an aircraft will float, providing that we follow the ditching checklist and we close the outflow valve and we do not extend the landing gear and things like that. The aircraft will float, providing that it is in one piece. But the problem is that you have two wings out there. Okay, so those wings have to be exactly parallel and above the waterline when you touch down. So you have to, in a perfect situation, you touch down on the kind of back of the body, and then you kind of just slide down, just like Solly did in the Miracle on the Hudson. But if you make one wrong move or if it's choppy, it's a lot of waves, for example, and one wing hits the water, well, then you have a huge momentum arm that is going to hit the water, and that's going to turn the aircraft, potentially bury the nose, and it might just flip over. So this is the problem. You can't really control it. That's why, by the way, most of the the planes that are built to land on water have the floats well below, so that you can kind of control the touchdown, and there's no risk of the wings hitting the waterline. So water landings is a terrible thing. It's not something that you want to do. It's kind of the last thing. The reason that Sully chose to do that in the Hudson was that the only other thing he could do was plow the aircraft straight into one of the biggest cities in the world. That wasn't an option. He chose the Hudson to make absolute minimum third-party damage. I don't think that he thought that it was going to have a good outcome. That's why he was so surprised when everyone survived. He thought that this is the least bad thing that I could do, and it turned out to be the absolute best thing that he could do. Okay, but we are training it, and no, you wouldn't put floats on planes just for the very odd chance of having to land on water, which happens once in a blue moon only, unless you're in a seaplane. So, Sherep 777. If there would be a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so $1 million on table and an Airbus 320 parked on a ramp, and in order to get the money, you would have to do a circuit on a 10,000 feet runway without any training. Would you consider doing it? Plane is a plane. Well, I would get $1 million to fly to do a circuit with a 320. The thing is that without any training, I don't think that I would get it started. That's as easy as that. Because you need the training in order to understand the systems. Yes, a plane is a plane, but a plane is a plane when you're out flying it. When you're trying to to get it started, get it set up. But okay, let's say that it's working. If it's working, if it's flying, I'll be able to do that. Yes. Because I know I will be able to see where the flaps are. I'll be able to see how much, more or less how much thrust to set. If I'm alone, I'm not endangering anyone's life. Then I think I will be able to. But we'll see. All right, I might see. I'm sure that there's someone out there with an Airbus simulator who would love to take me up on that challenge, and I might make an absolute fool of myself. But it would make a really good video, wouldn't it? Okay, Anthony Ochoa, I love your videos. Thank you for your hard work. Well, thank you very much. And Michael Jarmonovic, your question didn't come through. If you had a question, then go into the Mentour Aviation app, go to the submit feedback feature on the settings. That will send me an email and I'll answer your question. Just write super chat question in the headline. Cool. So I'm going to go into the Mentour Aviation app now. And I'll see here, there's loads of people that are writing. There's every Sunday. There's always a lot of stuff happening inside of the app. So Sam, the Ryanair guy, is asking, Mentor, hello. If a 26k assumed 50 degrees gives you 92.5 N1 and 22k assumed 30 gives you 92.5 N1, then why would you use 22k? Why not use 26k? It's the same thrust rating. Thanks. Because that shouldn't happen. All right, the fixed D rates can only D rate down to, I think it's 25% maximum, something like that. But you're right. If there is a choice between the two and they do the same thing, it's going to have the same effect on the engine. But we don't do it that way. The way that Boeing has instructed us to do it is we start with a fixed D rate, so we D rate as much as possible using the fixed D rate. And only once we've done that, then we use assumed temperature to kind of skim off the rest. All right, so that's what Boeing has told us to do. And one thing that I've learned very early on in my airline career is try not to be too smart. Do it the way that Boeing or the airline manufacturer has told you to do it. It's probably a whole bunch of really smart people that have figured it out before you. Sean Rady. I'm a PPL student in Ireland. Do you think Brexit will affect my freedom to fly between Ireland, Northern Ireland and the mainland UK? Once again, impossible to say. I don't think so. I think that it is in the interest of both Ireland and the UK to have the border as free and open as possible. However, Northern Ireland, for example, is part of the UK. The UK leave the bloc without having a freedom of movement clause in there. Well, then the borders might come up. and then you might face problems. I mean, we fly over borders all the time. You're just going to need a flight plan, and then you might have to do some kind of border checkpoint control when you get off the aircraft. But these things they're going to figure out. It's not like they're going to suddenly stop flying to the UK. No, there's going to be a way to figure this out. But like I said, it's probably going to be annoying, and it's probably going to be costly. Jake Schroeder is asking, and I'm getting this question a lot. Would you ever do a video with Captain Joe? The answer to that question is yeah, I would love to do a video with Captain Joe, but I was in contact with him about a year ago, but since about a year ago I haven't. He doesn't answer my messages, and I am not. It's not something that I need to do. I would think that would be a fun thing to do, but at the moment there is no communication, and without communication there's nothing going to happen. So yeah, sure, Joe, if you're looking at this, I'm still open to do some kind of collaboration, but he's busy, he has a new job, he flies long haul. It might not be possible to do it in the way that it was when he was flying a short medium haul in Europe. So to answer your question, it's unlikely that will ever happen. I'm going to start looking into doing collaborations with others though. I have quite good communication with flight shops, for example. I would love to go over to the US because I know that there's a lot of, possibly a lot of you guys who are watching this that's from the US, and I would love to have a way to connect to you guys, but and that would be cool to do together with one of the US YouTubers. And Flight Shop is a personal favorite of mine. You should check it out. Then we're looking, if you check out his channel, you will see some seriously well edited aviation videos, like really, really good. I can only hope and aspire to reach that level at some point. But he is a professional editor, so that it's great stuff. Check it out. All right, that was the last super chat question. And as you can hear, guys, I'm running out of my voice as well. So, Kioris, Mentor, I'm really enjoying your app. I can't wait to see it further improved. Yeah, there will be some cool improvements, guy. You have to get in, you have to get it. Just go in and check the chat every day. Right now, I know that the chat is very simple, okay? I keep making video playlists of other YouTube videos that I think that you guys should be watching. We have featured SR71 videos now on Concorde videos, and anytime there is a major thing happening, I push it out to get some information quickly. But right now it is a very simple app, but it will be very, very cool. Within a few months, you're going to see some really, really cool changes to it. So once again, if you haven't got it, get it. It's free. I want to say that again, it's free. Now, with the new update, there will be some changes to that. I will be introducing a premium level segment inside of the app, which is going to have some extra cool features. All right. So I'm just saying that right now. It's not so it doesn't come as a surprise. But the app to download and to participate in the chats and on all of the new cool stuff that will come will be completely free. All right. It's only if you want to that you're going to have to pay something, and that's going to be for some really good content. For example, for the channel, I can't really do this really technical